Welcome, Bronco Nation, to another exciting video. I am so excited to have everybody here with me today because this is not just going to be a great look at Boise State and even at the future here for this 2025 season, but it's actually going to be a look at all of that with a current player for Boise State. Obviously, we've had some great guests on, some recent graduates, but now we get to have an up-to-date view as well of what's going on in the Boise State program. Today, I have Max Stege, who is a Boise State defensive lineman, originally from Germany. He's been with the program since 2023, and he is excited to be part of this 2025 season, and the coaches are excited to have him. The fan base should be as well. Max, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is going to be an awesome discussion. Max, like I said, has been with the program since 2023. 14 tackles so far in last season's game. He appeared in 14 games last year. He also had 3 sacks for negative 22 yards, and he also had a partial sack in the Penn State game as well. And like I said, looking to have a much bigger role this season. We'll be excited to talk about that. So this video, we're going to go through Max's career, how he got to Boise State growing up playing in Germany, what that was like, how he came to the Broncos, what last season was like, and then we'll end with a look ahead at this 2025 season, just some of the excitement overall for that. So it's going to be a great video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you leave your comments below as we go through our discussion. I'll go through and have that discussion with each and every one of you. So Max, starting off the top, again, prospect coming over from Germany. I've been excited about your career at Boise State since before it even started watching your tape from your playing days in Germany. You had quite an exciting background there. Your father was a professional boxer, and then you yourself were the captain of the U19 team, and obviously recruited to Boise State. Can you talk a little bit about playing the game of football in Germany, some of the differences, some of the hurdles that you had to go through, just learning how to play American football in Germany and how that came about?
Yeah, man. Actually, it's funny because I remember signing day when I just signed with Boise State. You brought out that video of like all the recruits that just signed, and I was sitting at home watching it because I was looking up like like people that report about Boise State, blah blah, and I found you, and I was watching it with my parents, and it definitely made me feel good what you said back then about me. So that's a little background story there. Yeah, like you said, my dad, he actually was a professional boxer. And yeah, I boxed my whole life. I started when I was like 8 years old, 7 years old, something like that. And did boxing. Before that, I played a little bit of soccer, a little bit of tennis, stuff like that. Then went into boxing when my dad thought I was old enough. My brother was already boxing for uh, a certain amount of time. And yeah, went into boxing, but never really was that great. I mean, I was solid. I did, fought in a couple good fights, but I was never as good as my dad was or my brother was. So it was kind of hard to always be like, kind of like the low light of the family, kind of like, especially when your dad is your coach too. He was our coach, my brother's and mine. It was kind of hard, all those car rides home after you know, you lost a fight or whatever. It just kind of sucked. And when I turned 15, I remember that I wanted to try out a team sport just because I was kind of, sick of just doing everything alone, always, just being on my own, playing a sport or boxing and stuff. So I kind of looked through the internet and stuff, and I already played soccer, as I said. And I saw everywhere that I guess the greatest team sport on planet Earth is American football. So I was like, all right, let me look this up. I looked it up. I watched a couple YouTube videos. I'm sure everybody watched when they were young. And I was like, yeah, I mean that looks pretty fun. So I just went to a local club team. It was called the Cologne Crocodiles. Um, Started off, played a little bit of receiver just because I didn't know anything. I was pretty skinny, pretty tall. And then my head coach at that time, after 2 practices, he put me on defensive end. And yeah, I stayed there for the rest. Played, it was always like, it was like U16 and then it was like U19. So played 2 years of U16 when I was 15 and 16. Played pretty good, played the end, and then went up to the U19. Played in some, all-star games and stuff. Then went to the national team, and then at some point, an international scout. His name is Brandon Collier. He has a organization which is called PPI Recruits, and they host camps around Europe. They go to Africa. They even go to Asia. And he just really travels the world and tries to find new people that have talent and that want to play overseas or in America. So I texted him on a message on Instagram asking if I could come to a camp. My mom drove me 2 hours to a camp. Um, I worked out with him. He really liked me. So I kind of went with him from that on. And then I worked out with him a couple more times, had some private workouts. And then he invited me onto the Dream Chasers tour. That's what it's called. It's like a college camp tour where 2 weeks in the month of May, I think, you go to different kind of camps. There are like some mega camps, like at Mercer, where you have like 110 schools there. But we also went to like smaller camps where only like 4 or 5 schools were. And I was definitely an exciting time. First time in America. Uh freaking you do a camp, then you sit in a van, drive 12 hours to the next college, and you go to sleep. We shared a room with 4 other people, and because you kind of had to afford it, and you sleep 6 hours and then you do the next camp for 2 weeks straight. It was insane. We like tried to recover our legs somehow. We had like little showers in our rooms where we put like ice and then we did like ice showers and stuff like that. It was a crazy time. But then I went to a TCU camp at that time, and I just yeah, performed pretty good. I definitely always, I think, was more like a, competitor instead of like the individual duels. I think my one-on-ones really was that what like got attention from the coaches. And yeah, the former edge coach from Boise State, Coach Pop, he saw me there, and Coach Marley, who actually came back this year, he was there too, and they both saw me, they liked me, and then kind of that recruiting process started. And during that, I got a couple of other offers from other schools. But Boise, right from the beginning, was kind of different. They took their time with offering, they took their time with getting to know me. Um, and yeah, then at some point they offered me. I came on a visit, and I guess the rest is history.
I love what Boise State is doing recently and bringing in so many international recruits. I mean, the
Yeah,
roster right now is a United Nations of international recruits. You got Arthur Boachi coming over from the Netherlands, Denise
yeah,
D'Souza, who's from the UK, but then obviously originally before that, I believe it was Nigeria.
yeah,
You got obviously Australian pipeline, Germany, and I love that because Boise State's always been built on those diamonds in the roughs, and that does not just
right.
mean nationally. I mean, internationally, Boise State's always done a great job of bringing in
Yeah,
guys like Geraldo Baldovine or Canadian Bacon and all those
that's
guys
right.
coming over to Boise State. And what I love about that is that when you're building up a culture in a locker room, having these international guys, each of them brings their own perspective, and not just their own perspectives, but their own challenges they've had to go through. Because
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
not necessarily when you're an international recruit, you don't have that football culture like you do in America. You have to work for it. And oftentimes in a sport that maybe not everybody is as familiar with. And so there's a lot of different hurdles that are challenges, but that also build up the player as well and bring a different level of drive. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you went through as a player, having to again work through all these hurdles that made challenges you faced, and how you feel it made you better as a person and as an athlete pursuing American football in Germany?
Yeah, 100%. So, first off, I think what's important to know is in Germany, we don't really have high school sports. So, everything goes over clubs. And I remember my club team, the Cologne Crocodiles, they were like at the very edge of the city. So, I'm from a very big city, Cologne, and it's like 1 million people live there. So, my high school was super centered. It was in the middle of the city. My home was on the one end of the city, and the club was on the other side of the city. So I remember I had to drive 20 minutes with the subway to the school, already bringing my pad and helmet because we didn't have a locker room. So bringing that on the subway in the morning when everybody goes to school, so the subway is packed, and I'm coming in there with my big backpack, my pad, my helmet, my jersey, everything, and going in there, kind of squeezing into the subway, then going to school, carrying that thing with me. And high school in Germany is very long and very challenging. You start at 8, and it goes all the way till 5:30 every day. So I'm carrying that thing with me, and then at 5:30 when school is over, I had to rush to the subway, drive another 30 minutes to my club team to make practice in time at 6:30. And finally, I can put all my clothes on and stuff, practice for 2 hours, and then ride the subway back home for an hour. It was insane. Yeah, we didn't have a locker room, so we changed at the side of the field. We didn't have any chance to like wash our things, so you had to bring your sweaty jersey back into the subway. It was stinky and everything. The cleats, it was bad. And yeah, like I said, we changed on the sidelines. The field was insane. It was more like a sand type of thing. Like the grass was so worn off that it was more like sand. And yeah, it was just crazy. And then, I mean, obviously, you have football is I mean, it's getting bigger in Germany, but it's still very small. So you have really no resources. They kind of, recorded our practice with like a phone sometimes, but not really. So you didn't really have a chance to watch anything. And yeah, it was challenging. Those days were definitely long and hard. And then you get like maybe 6 games a season because there are not a lot of club teams there. So it was definitely challenging for sure.
That is an awesome story of perseverance. Again, to just keep with it and to
Yeah,
continue to work and condition with that. And I'm sure the transition to America with everything just being right at your fingertips has been
yeah,
interesting. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But again, I love hearing about the experiences of those international athletes coming to play. It is a completely different perspective that we don't think about. Got
right.
to have a little bit of a conversation with Jalen Henderson, former Boise State quarterback, who was playing with the Potsdam Royals over there in their German professional league, and just hearing about kind of the experience of playing football in Germany and just kind of the growth of the sport over there. So it's great to hear that the sport is starting to pick up. But again, the challenges of athletes like yourself brings a great culture to the locker room, I'm sure, when now everything is kind of right there for you. And so now you
Yeah.
actually get to put all that effort into making your game better. So let's talk about coming to Boise State. Before you do that, I did just want to say to the audience here again, great having a German athlete on the channel today. The Blameyer name is actually originally from Germany. So in 1911, my great grandfather Jacob Blameyer, who is my namesake, he worked his way over in a cattle boat. So I had some German flags. I couldn't find them, so to try and make Max at home feel at home here, I have my drinking boot. I
Let's
also
go.
had pulled out a German Folks hat, but I figured that might be a little bit too much, so I'm not gonna wear that one. But let's talk about coming to Boise State. So you talked a little bit about how they found you, how they recruited you. So we kind of already covered that piece. But coming to Boise State, actually getting the offer, coming and signing with Boise State, and now you're here in Boise. Can you talk about what that transition was like for you, going again from playing American football in Germany, where you're having to work just to play the sport, to now coming to Boise State and having to learn how to be a D1 athlete? Some things are easier, some things are harder. Can you talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you as a player and as a person?
Yeah. Um, I mean, first off, I think it was huge for me that I came in January, that I early enrolled. I think that was very, yeah, it was just very important for me because it helped me a lot with like getting figured out and just, getting settled in and understanding how everything works here. So that was a huge help. And I think, yeah, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. But yeah, I mean, first off, maybe a little bit about what's a lot easier here is that everything is right here. I mean, we got this awesome facility. I mean, when I remember when I first saw the cold and hot tub there, I was like, damn, this is crazy. I mean, recovery right here, and then the locker room is just insane. You got everything there. All your stuff is getting washed every day. You can just put your laundry in, and then the next day you open your little thing, and then it's all washed, and it's just perfect. You don't have to carry anything around. You can just put your helmet in your locker, your pad on top. Perfect. Um, I mean, back then I was living in the dorms. It's like a 2-minute walk to the facility. It was just great. I mean, I was in, yeah, it was just awesome. And everything gets recorded. You can always go back, watch everything. You can yeah, just learn way faster what's going on and stuff. And that was definitely very helpful. Another thing when I first came here was just how good everyone is. It was just crazy. I remember walking in and I first saw like a D1 offensive tackle who are like, 6'8" and freaking huge. I remember seeing Cage Casey for the first time. I was like, damn, this is insane. Because in Germany, they really put everyone on the O line. Like you don't really got to be tall or anything. So that was crazy. And then I remember going into spring ball, just coming in the morning, and you look at the practice plan, and everything is detailed to the minute. You know what I mean? Like everything is planned out. You got 20 minutes of indies, you got 7-on-7 run, you got one-on-ones, you got 14 periods, which are each 12 minutes long. Every play, like everybody has assigned plays that they're gonna run and stuff like that was just crazy to me because in Germany, we kind of went like whatever with practice. We kind of went in there and then we did, a little warm up, we did some one-on-ones, and then we just played. Um, so it was crazy to see that with like the practice plan. And then, I mean, uh, yeah, spring ball, when we had our spring game, seeing fans for the first time. I mean, in Germany, we had maybe 25 fans at a game, and that was all parents, you know what I mean? And then actually seeing fans that, pay money to come to a game and watch and actually cheer on you because they're fans of the team that you play for was insane. It was crazy. And then, I mean, then fall camp came around. That was definitely crazy to see how, fall camp goes along. That was crazy. But then I remember my first college game was at Washington, UW, 2 years ago. And I remember running into that stadium and it's just 70,000 people. You can't even hear your own voice in front of you. I had like a tear running down my eye just because I was so I can't even describe it. It was just crazy. And that's being your first college football game ever was just insane. So yeah, a lot of changes. Some made it a lot easier. Some things like fall camp obviously make football a lot harder than it was in Germany. Um, and some things just make it awesome, like the first college football game. So yeah, a lot of changes. And yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure playing with a higher level of overall skill level for as players goes is definitely a growing experience for
Yeah.
sure. Iron sharpens iron there. I interviewed the Steel brothers last year, and then I got to meet them in person after the Washington State game, right? And so like on Zoom, we're all the same height, but I'm 5'9"
Right.
and a half, and so
Yeah.
they come over to me, and I'm like, "Hey guys, how how you doing?" So
Yeah, I
obviously,
know.
there's all that size differential, which is gonna be different than what you're used to in Germany. But just kind of personally for you, what would you say has been the biggest challenge coming from that German level to D1 college football at the FBS level and a team with Boise State with such high expectations? What do you say has been the biggest challenge for you that you've had to work to kind of improve yourself or overcome?
Yeah, definitely just the technique and fundies that we play here with. Our defense is a lot about techniques. Every single step that you take has to be right or should be right in order for you to make a play and stuff like that. When I was playing in Germany, it was really just, you got a gap assigned, but even if you don't fill the gap, it's kind of all right. You see the ball and then you kind of run to the ball and try to make a play and stuff. You really play with your eyes in the backfield the whole time. You just look for the quarterback, kind of rush and stuff. I mean, I think we had maybe like 5 plays that we have installed coming over here and then you get install one and it's 6 plays. 2 days later, you get install two, it's 6 plays. And that goes along until like install 12. It was crazy. I remember sitting in my dorm room and writing on like cards to try to remember the plays and stuff. So that was a huge challenge, just learning the playbook and stuff like that. And then, like I say, the technique and fundies are just crazy. It's a whole different sport, really, if you want that. I mean, in Germany, I didn't play with any technique, and over here, I just everything is technique and fundy. So, learning the playbook, was definitely one of the hardest things. And then also kind of accepting your role and kind of starting your role because every freshman that comes in and thinks that they're gonna be playing day one. You know what I mean? And so did I. So coming here and seeing Ahmed Hassanin right in front of me, playing, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna play over that guy, you know what I mean? So yeah, just accepting that you have to learn, that you have to grow, and that your time will come. That's definitely hard for, somebody who comes into college, is 18 years old, has all these big dreams, and then it all get like kind of taken away for a second, and you gotta like settle down and tell yourself, your time will come. You just gotta learn, and you just gotta keep working and stuff. So I would say playbook, technique and fundies, and accepting that you will not be a superstar day one are definitely the hardest challenges that I went through.
Well, you've taken all those challenges and you've really immersed yourself and grown yourself overall. And obviously, like I said, last season playing in all 14 games in various different roles. But again, three sacks, negative 22 yards, and 14 tackles overall throughout all 14 games, and a growing role there. So let's talk a little bit about last season before we look ahead into 2025. So last season, like you said, coming in 2023 was a little bit of a different year for Boise State, and then 2024 was back to what I think a lot of us as Boise State fans we're used to. But I'm sure for you coming over from Germany, experiencing 2023, and then everything that 2024 was, that is such a skyrocket, right?
Yeah,
Of varying degrees of experience going from German football, or American football in Germany to collegiate D1, disappointing-ish year, finishing high, and then going to the CFP is absolutely incredible. So, can you
yeah,
talk a little bit about that 2024 season for you? Just a little bit
yeah,
your experiences from last year, and just kind of how again how you saw yourself growing and the team growing overall to accomplish what you all did.
yeah. So I went into the 2024 season with the goal of being Ahmed's backup. That was always the goal throughout the spring semester, throughout the summer, throughout fall camp. Um, I was competing for that role with other guys, and so going into the summer, I just was sitting behind Ahmed, trying to do everything that he's doing, trying to learn everything I can from him, and that worked out pretty well for me. So going into fall camp, still competing for that role, had a really good fall camp. Yeah, played my ass off, played really good, and yeah, then finishing fall camp with getting that role behind Ahmed was awesome. I mean, I was super happy. I was exactly where I wanted to be. Yeah, and then we went into the season, and obviously Ahmed played a lot. I only got in, at the beginning of the season for maybe like 10 reps, 15 reps, stuff like that. So just yeah, at the beginning, like the first 4 or 5 games, I was getting a little frustrated just because I wanted to do more. I wanted to give the team more that I have and stuff like that. But I was just in constant, exchange with my coach Frazier, and told him about my feelings, and he just always told me to, stay in the moment, don't look too far ahead, just take it day by day, work work day by day, and everything will come, and that's how it was. I remember, I think it was like game 6 or 7, Nevada, where I had my first, solo sack. I just thought to myself, yeah, that's exactly right. Like my coach was right from the beginning, and everything paid off. And then yeah, from that on, like from that game on, it kind of went like more uphill in my eyes. 2 games later, I had another sack against Wyoming. That was super cool, and the overall team success just kind of carried you through the season. It was just awesome to see. And same thing I did in the summer, in the spring, and fall. I just kept doing what I Matt did. Always watched film with him, always was open to any feedback he had. And same with my coach, just always stayed open for feedback. Yeah, just looking for things I can improve. And then at some point, the college football playoffs came around, and I probably played my best game against Penn State, which was just the cherry on the top, then basically. Although we lost, unfortunately, but it was definitely a good success for me to play that good in that game. So yeah, that season was just overall all about, not getting frustrated, just keep staying in that role that you have, keep learning, take everything you can from Ahmed, from my coach, And yeah, at the end it paid off for me last season. And it was just great.
I love that you talk about that team success because Boise State's defense was really incredible last year and a huge part of the reason that they ended up in that CFP at the end of the year. You look at the turnaround from 2023. In 2023, they're giving up about 143 yards per game, which is about 46th in the country, right? So kind of middle of the road there. Whereas last season, 2024, 120.5 yards per game. And they played some really good teams like Oregon and Washington State and some of these other programs, which was 27th overall in the country overall, that 120. The big change was the sacks. 36 sacks, which was all right in 2023, to 55 sacks for a big part of the season, leading the country in sacks. Can you talk about how that happened? You got to be part of all of those discussions, all of those workouts over the summer. How did that switch happen from 2023 to 2024 with almost the same guys, much better performance in 2024? Was there a mantra? Was there an ethos for the season? How did you all make that massive improvement from 2023 to 2024, especially from that front seven?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest part goes to our coaches. I mean, Coach Shins just did an unbelievable job with like our defensive coordinator just did an unbelievable job with all the pressures. He's like a defensive mastermind. The things that he can draw up on a whiteboard are insane. All those pressures were not only good on paper, but actually hit in the games. So I think that was a huge part, just his pressures on third downs, and then also Coach Frazier, just the experience he brings with playing himself, the way he coaches is just yeah, unbelievable. And he grew all of us in the edge room a lot in our pass rush. And then I think the last part is like you said, the people were kind of the same from 2023 to 2024. And I think we already had it in us to do all these sacks, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I think just the fact that everybody stayed, everybody believed, everybody knew that we can do it, uh, brought us all that success with those sacks that we had. And yeah, so I think the coaches and the belief that we had, the belief in our coaches, the belief in the pressures, and the belief in ourselves that we can perform like that, that we can be a top team in the nation. Yeah, that's the biggest things.
One final question here on 2024 for you, coming from Germany to play American football. You talk about you want to be part of a team sport. You want to be part of the greatest team sport. And then as a team, you achieve the highest level. You get to the playoffs. That the highest level you can get to in college football is being part of the playoffs, and you get there. I've talked to some of your teammates about what that felt like. I've had Alexander Tubner on to review the defense, and he's talked about it. Also had Jonah Dalmas as well. But can you talk about for you what that personally felt like to, a kid from Germany who had to work his way up, making it to the CFP, and like you said, having the best game of the season for you in that final game. I know you touched on it already a little bit about getting to that game, but can you talk about what that meant for you at an emotional level, at a personal level, being in that matchup?
Yeah. Um, so I think first off, I think just not growing up with football. Like, I mean, before the age of 15, I didn't know what football was. So I didn't know what the college football playoffs were or anything. I think that has a huge part in, how I see things. Maybe when we got to the playoffs, it wasn't like that crazy for me just because I'm not sure what that really means. You know what I mean? Because I just didn't grow up with watching college football playoffs or anything. But just how people, talked about it. I remember coming in the day where we got elected for the college football playoffs. We got all these reporters, all these cameras, everything. So I was kind of like, all right, like this kind of is a big deal right now. You know what I mean? And then I mean, just people hitting me up and stuff like that. I kind of realized, all right, this is pretty big. And then when we actually got into it, I mean, just going there for a week to Arizona in this awesome hotel, all these media days and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, this is college football right here. So I would say maybe it's like right from the start when I was like when people talked about, yeah, Boise State could make it to the playoffs. I wasn't really, like crazy overwhelmed just because I didn't know how much it means. But then when we actually got there and I kind of realized what this thing is, I was definitely stunned by it. I was like, damn, like this is the real deal right now. And then I remember the stadium was insane, all these people traveling to the game and stuff. It kind of took me a little bit like like a week after or something to realize how big it really was. And I remember just watching like the highlights on YouTube, and you have these professional commentators and all that stuff, and I showed it to my family in Germany, and then it kind of clicked and I was like I'm basically a pro now, I'm not playing in the NFL, but it's kind of like being a pro soccer player in Germany. It's that big of a deal. So before the playoffs, maybe didn't hit me that much, but during that week in Arizona and the week after that, I was like, damn, like, yeah, like it's almost like a made it moment.
Well, hopefully you get to have that feeling again this season. So let's talk
Yeah.
about 2025 because that is part of Boise State's goals. I've seen it's just been updated on your wall there in your meeting room. You've crossed out bowl game and wrote CFP is now your goal
Yeah.
every single year, and I love that. And every player who's come on has talked that is the goal of the program. So 2025, working towards the playoffs, and it looks like you're going to have a significant role as part of that as well. I know that Spencer Danielson has mentioned you as a guy that could step in for the role that Ahmad Hassanin had last year. What does it mean for you to be mentioned in, the same lineage there as one of the greatest defensive linemen probably to ever do it at Boise State? And now that's a role that you have a chance to step into. What does it mean for you to kind of be at that goal that you had from freshman year, and now it looks like you have a chance to step into that this year?
Yeah, I mean, it means everything. I can't even really describe what it feels like. It just means the world to me to have, that kind of trust from my coaches, from my teammates and stuff. But for me, it's all about, taking it day by day. I don't want to get into a habit of thinking too much about, you know, the season. Like I have to perform like I'm at that. I have to do this and this. I have to get 12 and a half sacks like I'm at that in his junior year. Like I don't want to get in that habit because I think that's just keeping you from being great. I just try to take it day by day. I'm doing the same things I did last year. I, stay close to my coach. I'm trying to stay coachable. I'm trying to get everything coaching wise that I can get and just taking it day by day. And I think that's the way to do it. You can't really look too far into the future. You just have to, yeah, we talk a lot about getting 1% better every day, and that's my goal for this 2025 season. I don't want to I don't want to, make myself too much pressure with thinking I have to do this and this and this and this. I just want to be the best player I can be. I want to get better every single day, and everything else is gonna follow.
I love that, talking about embracing your own style and the kind of player that you are, and writing your own name in those Boise State history books in your own manner.
Yeah.
For you personally, what is that big focus for yourself in an off season before coming into next year? What's the one thing or a few things that you are working on personally to improve on and get better in overall before you step into that role?
Yeah, first off, definitely my body. I mean, yes, last year I think I played around like 255, 260 pounds. And at the beginning of the year, Coach Frazier told me, in order to be a starter on and play, 14 games a season or even more and play, 50, 60 snaps every game, your body has to be bulletproof. It's got to be, it can't just, get tired when you're in week 6. So a big thing was just, gaining weight, getting more muscle on my body. I was, working really close with Coach Hilgard and his stuff. They're doing an amazing job, all spring, all summer, and I'm gonna keep doing that during the season. So yeah, just forming my body into a body that can play that many snaps and that many games was the biggest part. Um, Second, just continue to clean up small mistakes that I have with my technique and fundies. They can be, faster footwork. It can be more, you know, more active hands, stuff like that. And then the third part was just mobility. As somebody who's naturally more like stiff than other people, it was a big part for me to, get more mobilized in my body. I put a big emphasis on my, ankle mobility, on my hip mobility, on my T-spine mobility, all those things that you need in order to be a good player. And Coach Hilgert and his staff helped me a lot with that too. So I would say my body, um, getting better at the technique and fundies, and then being more mobile, was like the biggest things that I worked on.
Well, this season for you and for the team, I talked to a lot of your former teammates here who graduated recently, and they talked about coming into last year, there was just this energy on the team that you knew you were going to get to the CFP in the end. That was the level, and that was the feeling coming in that you knew you could compete on that level. So it really wasn't a surprise when everything else worked out. Obviously, this year it's a little bit of a different faces, right? You lose some guys, Ahmad Hassanin, you on the defensive side, Simpson as well, and then obviously Ashton Genty on the offensive side, but I think there's still a high confidence in this locker room. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of that energy is in the locker room and kind of that feeling, just kind of that motivation and where this team feels like they're heading this year?
Yeah, I mean, big things that we talked about last year as being like the closest team we ever been. And I think this year we even closer. Like everybody is just super into having this locker room feeling of, everybody loves each other. We're just a super tight group, and it's hard with a team of 100 people. It's hard to be super tight. But the coaches put a big emphasis on that, and us too. So I would definitely say this is the closest team I've ever been a part of. And with that comes that energy. I know that whenever I step on that field, I would die for everyone who is on that field with me. And I know that everybody else who's next to me would do the exact same thing, including the coaches. So I think the energy is the exact same. It doesn't matter if anybody left or whatever, or if people graduated, went to the NFL. We're as close as it gets, and I know that everybody in that locker room believes that we gonna have even more success this year than last year.
Well, final question for you. We've talked a lot about yourself and this team overall, and you talk about being so close knit as a unit. Are there any other faces, maybe newer faces that Bronco Nation should keep an eye on outside of those, main starters? We all know what some of those guys, Benefield, some of those guys are going to come in and do next year. But are there any kind of newer guys like yourself that Bronco Nation should keep in the back of their mind? Some of those names and faces that we'll get to know this year.
I mean, we have a tons of guys. I mean, from my position group, which I obviously spent the most time with, Malachi Williams. He's a transfer from Idaho. Super good player, freak athlete. He's gonna have a huge role on our defense. He's a great player, a great teammate, a great friend. So definitely got to keep an eye on him. And then freshman wise, I mean, Bull, he's a great player. He's an athletic freak also, and he has the potential to play year one. So he's gonna be a great player for us. As far as my position group goes, I would say almost keep your eye on everybody because we have a group of dogs, and everybody is gonna be a really good player in that group.
Well, there's a lot of exciting potential for your unit. There's a lot of exciting potential for the defense and for the team overall. So we're all really excited about where this season's going to go for you personally and for the team overall. Thank you so much for coming on and being part of this discussion. It
Yes,
was great to
sir.
be able to have you on and get that perspective and get to learn a little bit about your time at Boise State so far and what the future may hold.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was awesome. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks everybody for sticking all the way to the end. There's all that excitement for the team right now. So if you want a little bit more excitement, go back and watch the previews for the 2025 season that I've been doing. I said the defensive preview. I did that with Alexander Tubner. I'll put the link to that in the description. Had the special teams preview with Jonah Dolmans. That is also, I'll put the link in that description. And then next week, I'm going to be having Tyler Crow coming on, and we're going to be looking at the Boise State offense, which I know is also drawing a lot of excitement. So make sure that you watch that video. Make sure you like, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of that content. content. Thanks again, Max, for coming on. Thanks everybody for
Thank
sticking around
you.
all the way to the end. Make sure you put in the comments below again your expectations for the team this season, who you're excited about, and just your thoughts on this year. And I'll reply to every one of those comments. Again, thanks everybody for being here all the way to the end. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, go Big Blue!